Hey guys, so I've been asked a few times over the past couple of days to explain the Summoner update in 5.0 because people are feeling either overwhelmed or very unsure just by the sheer number of changes. So I decided to try and consolidate it all into just a quick video so I can link people who ask about it. So to begin with, Dreadroom Trance is the biggest functional change. It now sits on a 60-second cooldown. It's not tied to your Aetherflow, right? So it's a one button, press it, it goes off, you're in Dreadroom Trance. So this is now what determines your rotational cycle, right? This is the cornerstone of what you do as a summoner. Previously, this was Aetherflow. Important changes to note are that the cast time reduction is now a global cast time reduction as opposed to simply changing Ruin 3 to be instant. It now changes all of your globals to be 2.5 seconds faster. So that means you can AoE better and on the move as well as raise faster. That's very important. Dreadroom Trance also no longer increases damage dealt within it by 10%. So this means when you're trying to snapshot abilities in Dreadroom Trance, it's no longer important to get it in Dreadroom Trance, and you should aim for raid buff snapshotting instead. There's also a new trait, which means that from level 72 onward, you only need one Dreadroom Trance to become Bahamut ready, down from 2. The last thing is that a Dreadroom Trance will still reset your Tri-Disaster, and this is really, really important. So Tri-Disaster was nerfed in terms of its direct potency. So the dot does less damage now, but its ruination effect, the damage on hit with ruins, was buffed up to 30 seconds from 15. So using it optimally sort of means finding ways to snapshot buffs with the Tri-Disaster, as well as keep maximum ruination uptime. It was also shifted to a 50-second cooldown, which makes for just an easier and more user-friendly 1-minute cycle, I guess, where you want to reapply Tri-Disaster before resetting its cooldown again. Also, after using Dreadroom Trance, right, you can summon Bahamut because of the trait on Dreadroom Trance. And Bahamut's been changed as well. So firstly, he doesn't Wormwave from OGCDs anymore. So this means that Bahamut, as well as Dreadroom Trance, is no longer dependent on your Aetherflow stacks or your Addle for Bahamut. The only other direct change to Bahamut is his Enkindle, so his Archmorn has been put on a 10-second cooldown. That's down from 13, I think. It also allows for better manipulation of your Enkindles within buff windows. It's nicer to be able to put them where you want, especially with the Wormwave change to be able to maximize those. Affecting Bahamut, but also every other pet, is a pet potency scaling change. So currently pets will scale on a lower multiplier than the summoner, or a scholar if you're doing fairies, right? Meaning 100 potency Garuda attack will be lower damage than 100 potency summoner attack, and that's not going to be the case anymore. So it's overall a buff to all pets. Maybe enough to make up for the loss of Wormwaves, I don't know, and it means that like Archmorns are going to hit like a fucking truck. So Eggies are going to function a little bit different. Ifrit is going to be your 1 target or 2 target pet. So Garuda's AoE, 3 or more, and Titan is maybe good for his personal shield. I don't really know how he's going to fit into any content, but we'll see. Pet abilities are no longer on the pet hotbar, right? So they're on these shared consolidated cooldowns called Eggy Assault. There's Eggy Assault 1 and Eggy Assault 2, and this button makes them perform their pet action on the enemy, but it's also triggered by a summoner OGCD. This is mostly actually used for its secondary effect, though, of gaining a stack of Further Ruin. So Further Ruin is the Ruin 4 proc, but it can now stack up to 4 times through the Eggy Assault buttons, as well as the natural 15% proc from basic pet skills. Ruin spells have had like a lot of power shifted into them. So Ruin 3 was buffed in potency up to 150, but also given the effect that with both dots on the target, it does 250 potency now. So it kind of works like a fester every time you're pressing Ruin 3. This has increased to 270 potency with Ruination, so the portion of your overall damage dealt by Ruin spells is going to be much, much higher in 5.0 than it was in Stormblood. This is really important because while Ruin 3 was buffed, Ruin 2 was nerfed down to 80 potency, or 180 with both dots, 200 with Ruination. It just means that there's a large discrepancy in Ruin 3 versus Ruin 2 damage. It means that there's even more damage that stands to be gained or lost from minimizing the number of Ruin 2s you can cast. minimizing Ruin 2 for movement and weaving is largely going to be done with the Ruin 4 manipulation with the Iggy Assault actions, which give you the stacks of further Ruin. And all of these Ruin 4s are important for weaving, because instead of just weaving for worm waves now, or prepping for a Dreadworm Trance, you've got a totally separated Aetherflow system. And it's tied to Energy Drain or Energy Siphon, which are single target and AoE versions of the same thing. And they're on a 30-second shared cooldown, but they give you 2 Aetherflow stacks. So this results from going from 3 Festas per minute to 4 Festas per minute and 2 Energy Drains. So it's going to be really, really important to sort of keep Energy Drain cycling, as you don't have the same ability to press Energy Drain in downtime as you did with Aetherflow before. And because these Festas aren't tied to Dreadworm Trance or Bahamut, you want to use them all inside raid buffs optimally. The Festa was buffed to 400 potency, while Painfleur was nerfed to 140, so the threshold for swapping from single target to AoE is shifted from 2 targets to 3, and that seems to be like a recurring theme through Summoner, where 3 targets is now your AoE value. Bane also, in terms of AoE, is now free to cast on a 10-second CD. It also spreads Ruination, which you can take advantage of with Outburst, which is the new AoE Ruin spell which replaces old Tribind. And the last big change with Summoner is the Firebird Trance, which seems to be the part that's confusing most people. What you've got to realize is there's 2 different functions with Firebird Trance that you're going to experience while you're leveling up. And the first function is used from levels 72 to 79, right? And it's the animation that you see in the benchmark. With the, like, it does a trance, the same as Dreadworm Trance, but it's a Phoenix that comes above them. It doesn't summon Phoenix. The last big... So Firebird Trance, it shares a cooldown with Dreadworm Trance, and that's the most important thing about this button. You're able to enter Firebird Trance by having completed a summon Bahamut. So this means that after you summon Bahamut, it turns your Dreadworm Trance button into the Firebird Trance button. So going back to the start of the rotation, this means completing a Dreadworm Trance, then summoning Bahamut, then waiting for your Dreadworm Trance to come off cooldown, and then you can use a Firebird Trance. It has all the same effects as Dreadworm Trance, so the cast time reduction, the Tri-Disaster reset, and it probably ends with a Death Flare as well, but I don't have any footage of a sub-80 summoner. But the big change between Firebird Trance and Dreadworm Trance is that Firebird alters your Ruin 3 and Outburst spells, and it changes them into Fountain of Fire and Brand of Purgatory respectively. You cast the single target Fountain of Fire to proc the ability to use Brand of Purgatory, which is AoE, but it's also just a better single target spell. So while you're in Firebird, you will repeat this 1-2, 1-2, 1-2 of Fountain and Brand until the end. I'm not sure if Ruination affects these abilities. I mean, they do directly replace Ruin spells, so I'd imagine they do. However, at level 80, your Firebird Trance is improved through the enhanced Firebird Trance trait. This is the summoning you see in the job ability preview, and you enter it the same way as you did before, both 60 seconds after using Dreadworm Trance, as well as after summoning Bahamut. But this time, when you enter the trance, you summon Demi Phoenix. The duration's gone from 15 seconds to 20, and when you summon it, it uses Everlasting Flame, which is the raid-wide regen. So this regen is cool thematically, right? It's rebirth, bird, but functionally it fucking sucks, right? It's way too small to care about. It's a 3 or 4% heal on your DPS over the entire duration. So I would never depend on it. Apart from that, your 20-second the rotation in there is the same, right? With the 1-2, 1-2 of Fountain of Fire and Brand of Purgatory. But now Demi Phoenix acts exactly as Demi Bahamut does, worm waving during these actions. So Scarlet Flame is your new worm wave, and Revelation is your new Archmorn. The only difference between Bahamut and Phoenix are the tiny regen, the combo 1-2 attack, and the instant cast because of Firebird Trance. So overall, your cycle is shifted from going Dreadworm Trance into Bahamut and repeating that, which was gated by Aetherflow, and it's moved to Dreadworm Trance into Bahamut into Phoenix and repeating that. And it's now gated by your Dreadworm Trance cooldown. In terms of feel to play, it will feel very similar to before, like in Stormblood. We still have really long periods of downtime after Bahamut while you wait for the Dreadhorn Trance cooldown, and an exceptionally long downtime after Phoenix while you wait 40 seconds for the Dreadhorn Trance cooldown. There are a few smaller changes as well, which won't change too much fundamentally. You just have to remember to push a button at a different time on cooldown. So Enkindle is no longer tied to Ruin 4 procs, which is great, and it's now on a 2-minute cooldown instead. And Devotion is on a 3-minute cooldown, but buffed to 5%. So the 3-minute timer may actually make it really awkward to align, as it has to come from a pet, which should be away when you're bursting, so you may lose alignment with other jobs. I want you to keep in mind that I've tried to be fairly vague in terms of rotations here, as we're on like a really preliminary build, and things are going to change, so it's better to try and understand the abilities and how they work and interact with each other than to just learn a rotation, which you're then probably going to have difficulty applying after all the changes. Anyway, that's it. I really hope that you guys can understand a little better now and realize that it's actually quite similar, except for a few unique interactions within Firebird particularly. But yeah, thanks for watching, and I hope we all have fun with Summoner.